Thank you for the opportunity of being here at Sundance tonight. It's such a beautiful location. I want to begin my presentation tonight by asking you two very important questions. The first question is, have you ever been lost? Now raise your hand if you've ever been lost. I see a few people over here who are not raising their hands, and I'm going to guess that you never went to junior high in the United States, because if you've been to junior high, you've been lost. We've all been lost. I've interviewed hundreds of people who've been lost in work, life, or the wilderness. And I can tell you that we have all been lost. We've all had those times when we feel that pit of despair, that problem, and we have to overcome that adversity. We have to overcome that adversity and move from being lost to survival, to thriving in a world that is better for us. Now, a lost person is unable to identify or orient his or her present location with respect to known locations, and for some period of time has no effective means of reorienting. It's that time, that period of time when we have no effective means of reorienting ourselves that defines us as lost people. Now, the next question I want to ask you is this. What do you think we can learn from people who've been lost? From people who've had that deep lost experience and who've learned to survive and learned to thrive. And I would submit that that is a rich time, a rich period of learning for most of us. That when we are lost, even though we are in despair, even though we feel we are without hope, we are learning, and we are learning a lot. And those are valuable lessons. And so there are lessons of lost people that we can learn to take us from that position of being of survival to thriving. Now, I've been lost, you've been lost, we've all been lost. Sometimes in a point like this, I ask you to turn to your neighbor and tell them that story of when you've been lost. But tonight I'm going to bypass that just a little, and I want you to put in your mind that time when you've been lost, when you felt the most despair, and I'm going to tell you about mine. This is a very personal story. When I was 19 years old, I graduated from high school, and my father was not in the audience. He'd taken a wonderful job in Vienna, Austria, working for the United Nations, working for the International Atomic Energy Agency. It was the job of his dreams, and he had to leave 3 weeks early, and he apologized deeply for that. But I felt the fact that he wasn't there. My mother soon followed. They had bought a new home near the place where the university where I was going to study to rent. And we put renters in upstairs, and I lived in the basement. And I started my freshman year of college, all full of promise, all full of happy. But it wasn't happy. My parents, my family had moved away from home. They were living overseas. It was a time when we didn't have Skype and cell phones and things that allowed us to talk even openly with them. I wasn't ready to be a college freshman, and here I was. I had a job that kept me up most nights. I was working graveyard shift. I had a university that was big and vast, and I simply didn't understand it. I had all kinds of things go wrong, including a girlfriend who said no to my interest. And one day a knock came at my door, and there was a neighbor. When I say a neighbor, I mean somebody from my old neighborhood, not my new neighborhood, but my old neighborhood, who I hadn't seen for a long time. He was an older man. He was a heart surgeon who worked locally. He was a man who I found rather annoying. He used to come and visit our family on a regular basis, and when he did, I just went downstairs. I wasn't very interested in hearing his pseudo-friendly kind of questions. Well, he asked if he could come in, and he looked at me. He said, "Scott, how are you doing? You know, I know your parents have moved overseas, and I haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing?" His name was Alan Barker. And I said, "Dr. Barker, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I got this great job. I get to work all night. I got a great opportunity at school. I love my classes. I got this girlfriend." And about that time, he said, "Scott, it's not working, is it?" Words that pierced my heart. It's not working, is it? I stood there in silence, in dumbfounded silence, and then started to bawl like a little boy. It's not working. I was lost. I had lost my family. I had lost my connection. I'd separated from that from which was most important to me. And he said, Scott, you're going to come live with us now. And I did. He found me and saved me at a time when I was most vulnerable. I know many of you have done those kind of things in your life. And you've had those kind of things done to you. And so you know how important it is to find the people around us who are lost and bring them in. Well, for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the lessons of the lost. The 9 lessons that we've learned from interviewing people who have been and are lost, and they apply to us personally, and they apply to our family, and they apply to our sales jobs when we're reaching out and serving others. They apply to us all.